All right, so hi everyone, welcome to this new episode of our podcast. I'm Matilde, a young European ambassador from Italy, and today, together with Rose, we're gonna have a little chat with Natalia. So, hi Rose, introduce yourself, please.
Hi Matilde, I'm Rose. I'm 19 years old and I'm from Germany and I've been a young European ambassador for a few months now. Natalia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nataliia. I'm a young European ambassador, what a surprise, actually, from Ukraine. As well as I'm a PhD student in Ukraine. I'm dealing with ecological catastrophes regarding forestry, as well as now I'm being located as a fellow in one of the universities in Germany where I'm doing my research project, and definitely have started my deep volunteering regarding the current situation in my country.
Great, thank you so much. First of all, to maybe just start this conversation, I would like to ask you, how has the situation been with the refugees and how have you been coping?
Well, frankly speaking, we prefer to not to use refugees because that's for Ukrainian, that's quite interesting term to be used, frankly speaking. We call ourselves like mostly tourists because we are really into the point to go back home as soon as possible. Well, the situation is following that now we are not that impressed by the amount of Ukrainians who are coming to other countries. So mostly people are going back, even though it's not that safe, fortunately or not. But yeah, that's the choice of the people, and you know that we can't do nothing with that. But at the same time, the process is going quite smooth. Yeah, but the intensity is definitely lower than the first day of the war.
That's definitely good to hear. How have you been feeling about the situation in general and how everything has been developing?
Well, frankly speaking, as far as I'm coming from the northern east of Ukraine, and my city, what is Sumy actually, was blocked from the very beginning of the war. As far as I do have all the roots there as well, and all the ancestors, my family is also there. So I might say that my mental health is not this safe, and that's actually the point, because you can feel yourself safe whenever you are, but the point is your mental health, because you, even though I mean, like, my body is somewhere in Germany, but my heart, my thoughts and my soul is definitely in Ukraine as usual.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine this distinction between mental health, as you've been saying, and like your real soul. And I imagine that your thoughts are still, I mean, constantly with your country and your people. Have you noticed some evolution from the beginning of the conflict, and do you find any differences with the current situation now?
Well, frankly speaking, when the war started, the point is that you might be shocked. I mean, like, every person is quite shocked, even though, I mean, like, that's not that much surprising for Ukrainians, but even though. The first point, and I think that's also the point of the revolution so far, that we are starting to think about the invasion from the point of the victim. It's not that lasting. I mean, it lasts for up to 1-2 days when you are a bit unsure with yourself, firstly, when what to do, where to go, and what are the next steps, actually. But with stable, I mean, like, that's quite a feature from our mentality as well, that we are trying to fix as faster as possible. That's actually what we did. Thus, the evolution made us to organize ourselves. So depends on our background, depends on our personal challenges, so on and so further. We need to focus on the point that, okay, so I'm there, I'm here, and so on and so further. So what are the next steps? So you're organizing yourself, and then you are trying to do as much as possible. Well, before everything with volunteering, especially, was on Reels, I consider that we were in quite a aphoristic way, that okay, well, we need to help the country, we need to save the country so far, because that's not a secret that for Ukrainians, the first place is being occupied is for the country. I mean, like, yeah, so, and definitely the next place is being placed for the people, and another one is is a choice of each of us, actually. And when you understand that in some cases you might do it and you occupy yourself fully with volunteering, with help and so on and so further, it might take a lot of time. And then you understand that you truly and totally burned out. And that's actually the problem. That's a problem because you're burning yourself harshly. You can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't do nothing, you can't live your life. I might not use the word normal in this particular context, but still. And afterward, you understand that, well, you need to make a small stop, make a small pause, and re-understand yourself. That's something that is being dealt with the Ukrainians currently, with me as well, because I'm trying to get myself into some pre-war stuff so far, even though it's not working that perfect, but it's normal that it's not working that perfect, but even though it might help to save the mental health, what we are currently are being stuck somehow with.
So basically what you're trying to say is that you, in a way, you're trying to preserve and restore the person that you used to be before these tragic events.
Yeah, in some cases it's true. So this self-preservation is working, even though that's working in quite okay way. I might not say that very well because we are still dealing with a lot of issues, but yeah, like pre-war, I think we can't never be the same because a lot of challengeable events are happening in our life. And such events as a war, especially when it's a war in your country in 21st century, that's affecting definitely a lot of stuff. And yeah, because we are not that much secure with our future and future plans, what Ukrainians are actually like in love with planning and so on and so further, that's definitely is somehow like helping us to deal with ourselves. But yeah, we are trying to put ourselves on reels, and me as well. I'm not that much an exception so far.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's definitely very difficult to deal with this whole situation. This brings me to my next question, which would be, you are in Germany and you can see the Ukrainians entering the country and trying to find their way around, because I can imagine to be quite difficult to be in Germany and maybe not knowing the language and not knowing your way around. How have you found Germany's reaction to the situation, and how have you seen Germans themselves integrate themselves and trying to help Ukrainians with their situation?
Well, I think at the governmental level, everything was not that clear from the very beginning, because the wish is coming first, but the bureaucracy, and it's understandable because it's something new is appearing, that's truly understandable for Ukrainian side, it's truly understandable also from German side, and so is going a bit slower. So in this case, I think we were stuck with the point that the wish is coming first and the bureaucracy is a bit like challenging itself so far. Yeah, so that was the first step. The second step was the point how to help, and it was actually started to be managed by citizens of every city, every small village, even though. People were somehow shocked and somehow in panic, because they couldn't get the point what to do, how to help. But again, I mean, like the wish is coming first. And I think in that point, Ukrainians who were already there with some other reasons so far, we're trying to deal with it and to help German people. I mean, like in our case, to understand at what spot we are, what we might do. And also, I think we have a kinder gap between mentalities. That's also true, but it's also normal. That's truly understandable. Otherwise, I think the world might be a bit boring, if you know, the same or something. To bring this like Ukrainian mentality to Germany and German mentality to Ukrainians was also quite a challengeable process so far. Yeah, but that was also interesting because right now a lot of stuff is being fixed already. So from the bureaucracy level, I mean, like from the governmental level as well, Ukrainians are also put themselves on some points where they might deal with themselves in order not to, not to bother anyone else, because yeah, we are quite that people where we are really like into the point that we really don't want to bother anyone. We are just feeling ourselves extremely thankful. And I think that something what is being now, I mean, like somehow to be fixed is that this wish of Ukrainians to help the country that is welcoming them is at the first point so far.
You pointed out the difference between the mentalities of Germans and Ukrainians. Could you maybe elaborate on that a bit?
Well, I might say that generally, I mean, like Ukrainians are the folk where everyone enjoys freedom and democracy, and freedom is coming the first. And in any case, we are stuck with a lot of bureaucracy. We are trying to, to be a bit vulnerable. That's actually coming from our history as well, from our neighborhood. Geopolitical situation is also quite vital in this case. And I might say that to calm down and to be calmed down because of another rules and another acceptance of the country, government, and so on and so further, that definitely takes time, and it definitely takes a lot of efforts from our country, especially. The point is that Germans are calmer than us. That's also true. That's also a good point. I mean, like I can't find that it's advantage or disadvantage. We are dealing with totally other. I think that in some cases, Ukrainians are people who are extremely hospitable. That's also like true, and sometimes it's too much hospitable. So we are mostly like not requesting help that much, but we are offering the help, and that's also kind of like a lot of mentality issue, a lot of mentality feature. But the point is, in Germany, you might first of all, you might learn how to accept the help, and secondly, and what is much more vital, you have to ask for help. That's also very mentality stuff that I'm pointing out here in Germany, since I started to do my research project and deal with Germans quite closer. But that's also extremely interesting. How is it going? And especially to see this integration between two cultures that were bounded by some historical issues, and how they are collaborating with each other. That's extremely interesting. I mean, like to observe all this evolution of reaction and relations at the very citizenship level.
I think this aspect of two different cultures meeting and trying to collaborate is really interesting. And I think it's also one of the goals of our network, actually, to point out these common spirits of collaboration that there is between states, between people, because always remember that states are made by the people, actually. So so would you say that you had a positive experience of this collaboration, and would you say that the country in a way, or like the people extended your expectation when it came to help?
I might rather say that we didn't expect that much. That's also the true point, because I think Ukrainians, when we are dealing with our own problems, we are already learned how to deal with them by ourselves. I mean, like not to be that much open to others, because in our mentality, it means that we are bothering others so far. So, and I might say that to learn how to accept the help, especially accept the help from from Germans, because they are not our neighbors, for example, right? And the country that is being located quite far away from us, even though with another language, and language barrier also matters. We are learning German in some of the schools. That's also true, but it's not that much still. And that was quite surprising for us. I think for me that was quite surprising, because I saw it from the very local level, from the level of department of the university when I'm currently doing my research project, as well as from some random people who are helping to do some registration as a bureaucratical stuff in some governmental authorities. So I might say that we were quite surprised, but positively.
And that's really, really good to hear, actually. I think Rose would be really happy and proud about her country. So I wanted to go more in deep and ask you, so which role did you play in this volunteering and helping experience? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, as I must say before, firstly, you are just stuck. And secondly, you have to understand that if the situation or if the God will actually let you to stay in another country under the safe sky, you might do something. You have to do something. That's coming not from the brain that much, but from the heart. And as far as I know how to deal with medical supplies since 2015, when the war started in Ukraine, actually, that was the first step, how to keep going with that, but with more intensive way. So that was the first point, to find the approach and to reanimate the network of bringing medical supplies to people, and to arrange and to find donations and so on and so further. The second point is definitely to help with the humanitarian help, because of my region, for example, it was one of the first ones that was being affected harshly with that, and we all see the results of it currently, and today it was also attacked. So I mean, like, that's unstopping action so far. Well, and in this case, we are working, and we started to think how to deal with, and then we found the way. And to find the way is not that difficult, because you know whom you trust already, and whom you trust, and whom you might trust because of some other common networks and so on and so forth. So connection matters a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine, but it's definitely good to see that there has been so much activity in trying to improve the situation, and so many people that have actually thought about how to have a positive impact on a situation that is so complex and difficult. I've realized that, especially since I've been located in Germany during this time, that with dwindling media coverage, there's also been less activity by the people. For example, in the first weeks, we had 20,000 people going to demonstrations in my town, and at this point, there's only about 3,000 people attending those demonstrations. How have you perceived that people may stop being interested in trying to help because there's less media coverage? Do you feel like that has played a role?
Well, I would rather suggest to be agreed actually with the following point. Yeah, there's something that is bothering Ukrainians' mind very much, even though the first point why it might happen, that's only my slight prediction so far, is that before everyone is tired of the wars. That's also true, right? The only people who are not tired are the people who are fighting for the independence of the country. I mean, like, we have a lot of frontiers, the military one, the volunteering one, the diplomatic one as well, and so on and so forth. So we are not definitely tired. Well, but at the same time, yeah, foreigners are tired. That's also true. That's also understandable in some cases. And that might be acceptable. Regarding the point of the mass media, I might point out that, yeah, time after time, I mean, like, when you are reading it's a very boring book that consists of thousands of pages, and you are dealing mostly with the same landscape, you are getting bored very soon. When something is happening, like extremely vital one to be pointed out, then we are fetching the idea of the interest to be increased. That happened several times when Bucha crime was found and was recognized and so on. So I think, but that was the first one. I think the first one was actually the Chernobyl disaster, because atomic plant is something that is the whole danger for the whole planet, not only for the Europe so far. Well, and so on and so forth. I mean, like, these waves are existing, and time after time the waves are existing, not only from the perspective of, oh, that's a war in Ukraine, but as well as of the points of the country. So, for example, each of the country in Europe is playing its significant role in the war. That's in some cases that's fixed. In some cases, it's not that conscious, but even so. And in these waves, we are facing up that mass media is taking up into the consideration the reaction of the country. Not only, okay, let's settle down that, okay, that's a war in Ukraine. But it's not only that, right? We need to see the reaction, how the country is reacting on that diplomatic level, and to understand it, and to give people much more approaches to be into the point of the war. Because we might be deeply concerned and do nothing, but at the same time, we might be deeply concerned and empower our interest in by reading the mass media. Regarding the situation with demonstration, well, I think demonstrations are working perfectly at the very beginning when everyone is just deeply concerned, sorry for tautology, but even so, what is happening. And to get what is happening is much better to reach Ukrainians, especially those Ukrainians who might escape from the war territory. That might be the most powerful instrument, and that this instrument is quite working. Currently, I think, well, that's sad issue for me, actually, that not so many people are going out, but they are going out as, again, like as some much more significant event is coming, because yeah, the war is the war. We all understand what the war is and how is it being faced up with, and so on and so further. But I think that the point is just to do it regularly, maybe not every day, but to do it still regularly, to keep the interest going and to keep this, not just the interest, but the informative campaign as well, because information is quite a vital instrument, as we might see with all this deep-fake news, and so on and so further.
I definitely agree. And I think in this war especially, we have seen how important it is and what a vital role media plays in how a war plays out, especially since so many Russians also have been cut off from all media, and now Russia is gaining more positive reactions from within their own country. You also pointed out that you find it quite helpful if people go to demonstrations to keep up the good moral in a way. What do you think is the most effective way for people from, for example, Germany to help?
Well, when the war started, I brought the bundle of Ukrainians to my department, and I left the note that take a switch because it's Ukrainian. The second message was stay with Ukraine or stand with Ukraine, as this hashtag is existing so far. And the third was one, close your Twitter, please, because we all understand what the Twitter is. And I mean, like, that's a bit interesting mass media when you can get, or social media actually, when you can get a lot of interesting stuff, right? Especially someone comments, and yeah, a lot of disinformation, a lot of interesting, good information, but you might be stuck with another point so far. So that were my 3 recommendations so far. And as I saw, my department did it perfectly. I mean, like they managed to go through it. Well, the point is that well, at the very beginning, when everyone understood that they might help people who are, I mean, dealing with changing the country so far, that's a one point. But and Germans, for example, Germans as well as other nations, as Polish people and Moldovians and so on and so forth, they manage it perfectly. That's also true. But I also consider that because now a lot of stuff is already on itself, like, yeah, the bureaucracy is not that harsh and it's much more organized with some volunteering help, with translation, as far as for Germany, for example, that might be focused on the idea that there are so many people in Ukraine who, the first option, who are living in Ukraine, and the second option, who don't want to leave Ukraine. And we might to take it into consideration that, okay, people who would love to or had to, because of some family, any background reasons, actually left the country, had to leave the country, they are already safe. And the point is to stay with the people who are in Ukraine fighting at their own frontiers, but even though like they're organizing their own activities, voluntary ones, like in the majority of cases, that we might stand for those people who are in Ukraine. And I might give several arguments actually for this campaign so far. The first argument that when the amount of people is increasing, that might not work that perfectly, and for other countries as well, they might also impact the idea of economy. And like Ukrainians don't want to do that. We don't want to make Germany to be in the trouble of its economy because it's war in Ukraine, and so on and so further. Like that's the first point. Thus, that's the first argument. And the second argument is Ukraine is one of the powerful agrarian country that is quite good country to be deal with a lot of agrarian culture so far. And in this case, that's much better to stay for some food security, starting with the food security and global hunger ideas and so on and so further, as well as for other slow parts of economics of Ukraine. Like as far as Ukraine is working itself and is fighting for itself, right? It's fighting not only for Ukraine to stay, but for the whole, for the whole Europe, and actually for the whole world, because we are much more connected with each other and interacted with each other that we might saw before. Now we see actually how these connections are being faced up with a lot of other troubles, and that's something that I might put a huge point for staying with and supporting those people who are in Ukraine and trying to reduce or trying to neutralize the process of Ukrainian economy to fall that much down.
Yeah, I think you pointed one of the biggest truths that these tragic events, this war showed us that we're actually all connected. And as you said, Ukraine is such a big, and as you underlined, it's very important also for its economy and agriculture products. So, but that's of course not the only reason. But what I want to say is that of course we're all linked, and so that's also another aspect that we should take in consideration. And I will just ask you one last question, which is kind of related to this. Do you feel like this connection between countries has been showed, like not only in words but also with concrete actions? Are you happy or are you satisfied with the way that other countries responded to this event?
Well, I might summarize in some metaphorical way. When you are getting the present, you get the present in a box, right? And you might get it from your neighbor, from some random people, from some colleagues, from some relatives whom you haven't even had in mind beforehand, and so on and so forth. And you have this present in a fine box or so. Later on, when you do have time, you're unpacking the present and you are getting the point what was presented to you according to the background so far, or according to some personal issues and so on and so further. And when this present is being unpacked, you understand actually some sorts of the person. You can get some issues. And I think the war has also its advantages. And that's maybe a bit cynical to say in this case, but Ukrainians are quite stronger and much more united than before because of the war started, as well as Europe and Western Europe and Eastern Europe are now much more connected, and it's feelable. It's feelable from a lot of levels, especially from a level of locals so far. Not the people who are dealing with some governmental authorities, but from the locals, and it matters. Actually, action matters and the reaction matters as well. And in this particular case, I might figure out that you never know what might happen next, because the world is quite challengeable itself, but at the same time, the war opens like a Venus masquerade masks out so far, because you understand who is who in the war, and you might get a point not only from the geopolitical, not from the also European and Ukrainian, like EU and Ukrainian relations so far, but as well as the relation from your maybe good friend, maybe perfect friend, maybe your neighbor, and so on and so further. It opens a lot of stuff so far to be hidden before, as well as it opens, I think, not only Ukrainian eyes wider, but it also make the widers of the Western Europe wider. What was being told by Ukrainians beforehand, and what is getting to be told in next several years so far.
Thank you very much for your very interesting insights in this interview. We would just like to ask one last question, which would be, do you have any message to anyone, to Ukrainians, to Russians, to any specific country leaders, your family, friends, and you want to state anything that we have not yet touched upon?
Well, I might say that there are a lot of lessons that were learned by us in the past, but there are much more lessons that we are learning right now, and much more lessons that we are learning not only from the theory, but from the practice. And I think the generation of us, of not only young European ambassadors, but the generation of all the youngsters in all over the world, might take the current war in Ukraine, the current Russian aggression in Ukraine, as a lesson for the future, not only how to deal with the aggression so far, but how to prevent it, and to prevent it in a lot of other cases. And I hope that those past lessons that were not taken that much into consideration must be much more being taken in the nearest future.
This is so, it's really, that's such a great lesson and message that you are saying it out loud right now. So thank you very much for sharing all this and sharing your perspective in your story and how are you feeling. I understand this can also be very personal, but I think that will be for an inspiration, or also a way to think and reflect for everyone that is listening. So thank you very much again. Thank you, Rose, for helping me with this.
Thank you, Mati.
And so thank you, Nataliia, and we'll talk soon, I hope, and stay safe.